Some of the biggest turning points in history didn't look important at all. They looked like ordinary photographs until years passed. Then researchers noticed a face in the background, a detail no one meant to record, or a scene that later became evidence. Because some of the clearest clues about the past weren't staged. They were accidental, and that's what makes them so revealing. And one of the photos in this story didn't just change how people remembered an event. It changed who the world believed was responsible for capturing it. Let's start with a photo almost everyone recognizes, and the mystery hidden inside it. The most famous kiss, and the long search for who was really in it. It's one of the most widely seen photographs of the 20th century, a sailor kissing a woman in Times Square celebrating the end of World War II. When it was taken in 1945, it looked like a simple moment of public relief. Crowds, noise, joy, the kind of image newspapers loved. But decades later, something changed. People started asking a question that the photo itself couldn't answer. Who were they? For years, multiple men and women claimed they were the two people in the frame. And the more famous the photo became, the more the mystery grew. Eventually, authors and researchers treated the photo like a case file. They compared facial features. They examined body posture and camera angle. They even analyzed people in the background to confirm location and timing. And that's what made the image historically important in a new way. Not only as a symbol of victory, but as an example of how a single everyday photograph can outlive its own context and become something like a national artifact. And even now, the photo still carries a quiet discomfort because it captures a moment the world celebrated. But it also reminds us how easily history can become a story told after the fact. And what makes this even stranger is that this wasn't a rare photograph. It was a public moment, captured in plain sight. The next photo wasn't. The Warsaw Ghetto photos that the world didn't see for 80 years. For decades, the world thought it had seen the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. In 1943, the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising became one of the most significant acts of Jewish resistance during World War II. Most known photographs of the uprising came from German sources, images shaped by propaganda, not truth. Then, in a family collection, a set of photographs surfaced that had been hidden for generations. Not only were they previously unseen, they were unique, because historians believe they are the only known images of the uprising not taken by German forces, meaning the scenes were captured from a different perspective entirely. When these photos were discovered, they didn't just add visuals to history, they changed the historical record. The negatives had been preserved quietly, privately, not as an attempt to influence the world, but years later, museums and researchers recognized what they really were: a missing viewpoint. And that's what makes ordinary photos powerful. They don't just show what happened, they show what someone saw and what they were willing to keep, even when the world wasn't ready to look. But the next story proves something else. Sometimes the photo isn't hidden for decades. It's been visible all along, and people still don't understand what it means until science catches up. Old glacier photos that became science. At first, these photos were just scenery. Photographers in places like Glacier National Park took scenic landscape pictures, the kind tourists and explorers always took. Mountains, valleys, ice, nothing political, nothing urgent. At the time, nobody thought of those photos as evidence. But decades later, scientists began to realize something. Those old pictures were a baseline, so researchers went back, sometimes more than 100 years later, stood in the exact same spots and took modern photos to match the originals. The result was repeat photography, side-by-side image pairs showing how glaciers changed over time. The photos were never meant to become part of climate research. They were just people photographing a beautiful landscape. But later, they helped answer a question that statistics alone couldn't make people feel. What did we lose? And how fast did it happen? And that's the key detail. A photograph can prove change in a way numbers can't. And one photo in particular didn't just prove change. It forced the world to look, whether it wanted to or not. When a simple photo becomes a time machine. In the 1950s and early 1960s, people living near the Aral Sea in Central Asia took ordinary photos. Fishing boats, shorelines, harbors, family pictures near the water. Nothing dramatic. At the time, the Aral Sea was one of the largest lakes in the world. Those photos looked like normal life in a normal place. But decades later, researchers returned and realized the shoreline was gone. The water had retreated so far that boats sat stranded on dry land. Entire fishing towns lost their purpose, and those old casual photographs became something no one expected, a record of what the Aral Sea used to be. Scientists could compare those early images with modern photographs and satellite views. Not because anyone wanted to make a point, but because the change was undeniable. The pictures didn't just show a lake shrinking, they showed a way of life disappearing in slow motion. And that's what made them powerful. Not because anyone planned them, but because they preserved the before, so the after couldn't be dismissed. And that brings us to the final point. The most important part isn't that these photos became famous, it's why they still matter. And sometimes the photo isn't taken on Earth at all. The photo that looked like nothing until scientists explained it. When the first image of a black hole was released to the public, many people didn't understand what they were looking at. It wasn't sharp, it wasn't detailed, it looked like a glowing ring with a dark center. To most people, it almost felt disappointing. But that reaction was exactly what made the photo so perfect for this story, because it didn't look like history, it looked like noise. What most viewers didn't see right away was what scientists had spent years building toward. The image wasn't taken with one camera. It wasn't even taken from one place. Researchers used a worldwide network of radio telescopes, effectively turning Earth itself into a giant lens. Then came the hardest part. They had to combine huge amounts of data, correct distortions, and reconstruct a real image from signals that didn't look like a picture at all. And when the final result appeared, it wasn't just a scientific achievement. It was proof, a photograph of something no human being had ever seen directly. And over time, as experts explained what the ring meant and why the darkness in the center mattered, the public started to understand what this really was. Not a blurry circle, but a boundary. The edge of a region of space where light can't escape. The photo didn't just show a black hole, it showed the limit of what our eyes can normally reach, and what human ingenuity can reach instead. And like every other image in this video, its power wasn't obvious at first glance. It only made sense later, once people realized what they were actually looking at. Most people assume history is something you recognize when it happens. But the truth is, we usually understand events in reverse, through artifacts that survive. Sometimes those artifacts are documents, sometimes they're recordings, and sometimes they're everyday photographs that didn't look important at all, which means the world around us is constantly leaving clues behind. Not for today, for the questions people haven't asked yet, because the next time you take a picture that feels meaningless, it might be the clearest piece of evidence the future ever gets.